of pesticide exposure, there is that feeling that, well, that's going to happen to someone else. So there's three major objectives of my current project, which ultimately focuses on reducing pesticide exposure among adolescents. So the first aim is to determine whether a Promotora-based intervention targeting pesticide safety is effective in increasing knowledge about safety behaviors. Second aim is looking at two different delivery methods. So we have a family enhanced method where both the adolescent and a parent receive the pesticide safety education. And then the second group, only the adolescent receives the pesticide safety education. And then ultimately there is a control group where the parent and the adolescent both receive no education at all. And then the third aim really focuses on some specific pesticide safety behaviors, which include an increase in hand washing at the workplace, as well as clothes handling behaviors. So, and then the third dimension really deals with this issue of adolescent egocentrism or personal fable. It's essentially a feeling of invincibility. So we're looking to see how levels of egocentrism among adolescents potentially change as a result of this program. Just to give a little context, there's essentially three types of pesticide poisoning. The first is single short-term, very high degree of exposure. Oftentimes this is ingestion. So we don't see a lot of that. But really the type that we're dealing with this population is more of the long-term low exposure. So it's the individuals who are being exposed to the pesticide residues. In that particular case, a lot of the signs and symptoms may be dizziness, coughing, eye tearing, sweating, occasional breathing difficulties. But again, a lot of these symptoms never get to a high severity level. We talk about three types: inhalation, ingestion, and then dermal. So dermal, it getting on your skin. I think that's a big one in that, thinking about what youth are wearing when they're working around these chemicals. You're wanting to wear long pants, gloves, eyewear, socks, proper shoes. Oftentimes we want, high rubber boots. So those are steps that workers can really take to reduce this exposure. And then, really maintaining a degree of distance when pesticides are being applied to these plants that they're working with is important. Being conscientious of wind conditions on certain days. But then there's also the exposure of, just really bringing the residue back to their home to potentially expose it to others in their household. So what are youth and these workers doing in terms of their clothes handling? When they come home from working in this environment, are they going into the home, leaving their clothes on, sitting on the furniture, and not changing their clothes right away? So that's what we're trying to, really hammer home, is the importance of not only hand washing behaviors while you're on the job and when you get home, but what are folks doing with these clothing items? Yes, gloves are typically provided. Supervisors are encouraging the use of some of this PPE. However, when we talk and want to promote regular hand washing behaviors, there's situations in a lot of these places where the water stations are not at a convenient location. I think a bigger piece too is, what is being modeled by the other individuals that these youth are working with specifically. For the most part, the adolescent workers that I'm talking about are inexperienced workers. So there's just the initial lack of knowledge about the potential dangers of pesticides, and they're looking around and potentially seeing people, adults who've been working there longer periods of time, who some may or may not be taking shortcuts when it comes to PPE use. I think another barrier is like the perceived time that it takes to be safe. And ultimately, I go back to, the population that I'm studying is adolescents. And, the unique dimension that I've brought up before is egocentrism, this feeling of being invincible, that feeling that, well, that's going to happen to someone else.